Alrighty, welcome everyone. Looks like it is about 11 a.m. I want to welcome everyone to the webinar, Social Hour with the Creative Bar, presented by the Temecula Valley Chamber of Commerce. Before we begin today's webinar, we have a few Zoom reminders. We encourage you to ask questions today. There's a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen where you can submit your question, and we will make every effort to answer them today. You will be able to see the presenters and their presentations. We can't see you. And please make sure you have your mobile phone handy. We may be referencing a few things on that you can only access on your mobile phone. Now, I would like to welcome our presenters. Please welcome Katie Baker, Account Manager and Social Media Specialist, and Taylor Robinson, Social Media Specialist and Copywriter. Take it away, ladies.
Good morning, everybody.
Hello, good morning.
Know that you're all here, even though we can't see your friendly faces. Taylor, why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about what you do, and then I'll kind of fill them in on the Creative Bar if they're not familiar with us.
Yeah, of course. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Taylor Robinson, and I am, as Brooke mentioned, Social Media Specialist and Copywriter here at the Creative Bar. And I'm looking forward to presenting to you all today.
Taylor and I have a deep love for social media, and so we were very excited and honored when the Chamber came to us and asked us to present today. So before we kick things off, I just want to let you know that when we were talking about doing this, we very much are conversational people. It's why we love social. So we wanted to format this in a way where, it's very conversational, it's very informative yet casual. So that's kind of, we'll be talking back and forth about things and sharing our own experiences and things like that. And then we will do the question and answer session, which I'm sure there are always a lot of questions that people have when we're going through this. And we also decided we wanted to really give you a foundation that you can build off of with social. If we only talked about, granular tactics, we really we'd be giving you the fish to eat for a day. We wouldn't be teaching you to fish. So we really wanted to build this out and present it in a way that gives you guys the why behind doing things and how to build that firm foundation, which you can then build the tactical things off of. So the Creative Bar, really quickly, just so I don't forget to say this, the Creative Bar is a full service marketing, advertising, and branding agency. We opened in 2010 under the stewardship of Justin Lawler, who is absolutely fantastic. We have a team full of art nerds, strategists, storytellers, entertainers. We all have very bubbly, different personalities, and we truly, truly love what we do. And I think it always shows in our work. We are always about relationships with our clients. It's not just a box to check off, and a task to do. We are truly vested in these relationships, and we feel like Temecula Valley Chamber of Commerce is one of our favorites. So we really love the relationship that we have with all of the team. And so again, it was a great, great honor and pleasure for us to present to you guys. So without further ado, we'll kick it off and try to leave enough time for ample questions and answers. And thank you, Brooke, for reminding us that phones should be on silent and that we will have phones handy to kind of walk you through as much as we can, which is super weird doing it virtually. I mean, raise your hand if you're really tired of trying to do everything on Zoom these days. But we're going to do our best to answer all of your questions and just give you a lot of good insight and information that you can take away, and probably even some homework. So I'll hand it over to you, Taylor.
Okay, let me get this presentation started. Okay, so like Katie mentioned, we're really going to be focusing on the why and how to use social media. Although we could talk about it for hours on end, we only have one, so we'll try to keep it a little simple. Okay, so what is social media? Well, in and of itself, it's really a place to connect with individuals, businesses, and consumers. It's a place to start enjoying conversations, to advertise, and to tell stories. I know for me, like I go on social media because I want to be a part of the community and I want to be in the know. So that's why I use it. But what it's not is a hard sales tool. You're not going to get the most out of it if you're only on it to try and sell a product or try to sell a service. What you really want to do is build relationships and connections with your consumers, so they know that you care and that they can be loyal to you.
Amen.
Okay, so there's so many social platforms. I know you guys know I can literally, there's dozens, but we really wanted to focus on the big name ones that everyone seems to be on, which is Facebook and Instagram. Facebook is a multifaceted social network that has literally almost 2 billion active users every day. So it has such a large reach potential, and that's really why businesses see the value in it and they continue to use it, because it's just, you never know what communities you can build there and how many people are going to see your content, and you really can't replace that value. Instagram is kind of in the same boat. It has nearly 1 billion users. It's a photo and video sharing platform that really focuses on creating curated content. And what I mean by that, it's basically where your pretty content is going to live. It's where people go to see the nice pictures, really a lot of cohesiveness, and to also just leave comments and talk amongst each other there as well. And both of those platforms, there's so many features, and we could spend another hour on talking about just that as well. But a few that I really wanted to note is that you can do live video on both Facebook and Instagram. Particularly on Facebook, you can build Facebook groups and pages. You can even do a watch party. That's actually a new a new feature they just added. So again, social media is constantly evolving and changing. It's really hard to keep up sometimes. You can schedule your content through Facebook. On Instagram, you can post to stories, you can post long form video up to like 30 minutes, or you can post 30-second information as well. It's endless.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, we're going to go through a few of these platforms, and the great and also overwhelming thing about social media is that there are new platforms that pop up all the time. And that always begs the question, every time there is a new platform, should we be using this for our business? And one of the things that we recommend is that anytime there is a new platform, go and educate yourself on these platforms, find out how people are using them. Maybe not every platform is obviously going to be right for your brand. But there is always something that you can learn from these and how people use them that can inspire ideas for, hey, we saw this really cool thing on TikTok and we think that we could possibly use it as a style of video for a Facebook post. So just because they are very different platforms inherently, and you should use them natively for the things that they are known best for, it doesn't mean that it can't spark creative ideas on how you can possibly take those types of content and the things that they showcase and other people create there to then extend that out to the other platforms or the ones that you use. So again, make sure that you're going and learning about these platforms. Taylor and I have a lot of experience in social, but we also consider ourselves students. We are always students and always learning. And as you know, social is always constantly evolving in the things that it offers and the way that you can use it. So it's a really good idea to educate yourself and ask people how they use it, and find different ways and have those think tanks on like, hey, this is what I found on LinkedIn. I thought would be really cool for us. And that's really fun for us when we're doing strategy for social too, is finding those new and creative ways of implementing those things for our clients. So
to your point, Katie, I love staying updated on social media by visiting like websites on Google. One particularly that I like to use is Social Media Today, and that's where I find all my social media news. It's for how I stay up to date on the new features and how to use them, and just really being involved in those conversations that are sparking. So just wanted to add that little bit in there.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that there are all of those resources that, even if you're just starting out, there are places like that, Social Media Today and Marketing Week and Adage and Mashable and things like that. There are a ton of great books too. So I'm sure we'll kind of like mention some of those things, but following people who actually talk about marketing and use marketing in their profession. And that kind of brings me to Twitter. Twitter is probably my favorite social platform, and it's probably the most misunderstood platform. I could talk for days on Twitter. I started on Twitter in 2008, and I use it every single day. Is it for every brand? Not every brand is going to want to use it, and not every brand has time to use it. The beautiful thing about Twitter is it's a very powerful conversation piece and can be used for customer service. So a lot of brands like Zappos and things like that have decided to use Twitter as a customer service portal, and they do it really well. The difficult thing about Twitter is that the lifespan of a tweet is about 17 seconds long. So you can't just go post something and expect everybody to see it. Twitter is more for creating those conversations and then finding opportunities to be a part of other conversations, whether that's, other brands, or we have even groups called Marketing Twitter, and we all align and have marketing discussions by using the hashtag Marketing Twitter. And we do it all the time, every day. It's beautiful. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort to really build up and get moving. And one of the things that I've gotten in the past from clients is, well, I tweeted like 3 times. Like, why is nobody talking to me? I feel like I'm screaming into the void. But one of the things that we always like to tell people is that social media as a whole is not a sprint. It is a marathon. It does take time and it takes effort, and we will touch on those things too in this presentation. But Twitter is one of those that you kind of have to find that sweet spot, and you have to be willing to put in that effort and really follow people and invest in those conversations and in other people in order to see the payoff. But it is very much worth it. Twitter, just a little, couple housekeeping things about Twitter. It used to be 140 characters. They did increase it to 280 characters. And you can add on subsequent tweets to that original tweet and kind of create a thread, really. It's great because when you're talking to people, not just your audience sees it, their audience also sees it when they're replying to you. So other people are now starting to learn about your brand and jump in on that conversation. So it can quickly become very much a community feel and a community type conversation. Hashtags are widely used on Twitter, and you can actually search content based on hashtags. You can search based on geolocation. You can search based on just topics in and of itself. It's pretty cool because you can create lists on Twitter, and you can also search lists to find like-minded people, community-based people, all kinds of different things. So Twitter has a great search modality. It also has great analytics, which Facebook also offers analytics. Instagram does offer analytics, and we will touch on analytics in just a moment. So Twitter is really great for those kinds of things. And you can do video, you can do photo. They're also rolling out something called Twitter Spaces, which is more like an audio chat. So I go on and on about Twitter, but we'll move on to LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a really excellent place for a lot of B2B conversations, which is a business to business type conversation, but it can also be used for business to consumer. It is really good for sharing longer formatted. So as Twitter is more those micro bite, size pieces of content, LinkedIn can be used for a lot longer conversation or longer formatted type content. You can link back to your website if you have a blog post that you want to share. You can build your own community on LinkedIn. You can find other professionals in your same industry or different industries and connect with them and follow them. You can actually follow companies as well, which I think is a really cool way to get that news in my feed all the time about what specific people or specific companies are actually doing. It keeps me in the know and it stays at top of mind. So it is a really great way to connect with other business-minded people. It is probably the most business-centric platform. If I would pick one, it would be LinkedIn for business. TikTok. TikTok is a relatively new one that I myself am still trying to understand, but my teenagers seem to have a great grasp on it. And I've often heard marketing people say that they get like sucked in. It's like such a time suck because it is so
Oh, yeah.
interesting and compelling, and it does curate the content that you see based on the videos that you have watched in the past. So they kind of use that algorithm to find out, oh, okay, Katie loves watching TikTok tutorials on cooking. So we're going to deliver her that type of content. So it's pretty cool that it has that capability, because for content creators, if you are creating those types of videos, whether it's informational or entertaining, if it's a challenge that you can respond to, and you can join challenges, then it will start to show people that type of content, which is your content, if it fits what they're already looking for. So it's a really great way to connect with people who are interested in the type of content that you're delivering to them, which also makes it a lot more, I hate using the word viral because I feel like it's one of those words that just makes me cringe, but it does have an element of virality because people will jump in and create videos based on your videos, and they can do feedback videos and you can do challenges. So it is a very good way to share content that has that kind of viral ability. And then oh, and mostly TikTok is, I'm sorry, before, I don't want to miss this part. Gen Z is probably the biggest target demographic right now for TikTok, but they are seeing a lot of brands kind of hop on the bandwagon and start to use it for their own, because it does span like, the Gen X, the millennials, the Gen Z, but Gen Z is basically their biggest user population. And then we have Clubhouse, which is very, very new, still in its infancy, but is on the rise because it is a very different type of platform. The best way I would be able to describe Clubhouse is like an interactive podcast, if you will. So it's audio only, there is no video and there is no text. You can join Clubhouse by invitation only, or you can request to join and somebody can grant you access. So there is an element of exclusivity, but people, once you join, you do get invitations that you can send to friends, and you can actually invite them to join rooms that you're watching and interested in. The way it works is somebody can start a room. You can start it once you join Clubhouse. You put in your topic. It shows up in people's feeds. You can invite people to join, and they basically join as listeners, and then you can invite them to join as a speaker. And so it's a really great way to have conversations and get other people in on those conversations. And even if they're not a speaker, they start out as a listener, and everybody's a listener and they're automatically muted. Once they become a speaker, then they have the ability to unmute and actually ask questions and join in on the conversation. So that's what's really cool about Clubhouse, and it is rising in popularity. I would say the downside to Clubhouse is a couple of things. One, it is not good for the hearing impaired because it doesn't have any type of text right now. So you also cannot record the sessions right now. So once it's over unless you have like a third party recording capability set up. And also the last thing was that there are no analytics. You cannot see how anything's performing. So if I have a Clubhouse room and say I have 800 people join my Clubhouse room and we have this great conversation, I won't be able to see afterwards what that reach is, what the impressions were, how many individuals showed up, how long they stayed. I believe that that's coming down the pipeline as they start to really build this out and take it to the next phase. So those are just the top 6 platforms. There are a lot more. And if you guys have a question about a different platform that we didn't touch on right now, you can go ahead and put it in the question and answer, and we will be happy to touch on those when we get to the question and answer section.
Okay, so I know there's probably like a lot of terms like you hear regarding social media that you might not understand or be like, what are they talking about? What does this mean? So we just wanted to point out just a few that we thought are really good to know. The first one being your key performance indicators, also known as KPI. Simply put, that's just your data. That's really going to help you strategize and determine what content that you're putting out is performing the best and when. Just to go further more into it, some good insights to look at is your reach. Your reach is really how big your audience is. Who is it getting to? Whereas your impressions, that's going to be where your content lives on screens. I know that sounds weird, but it basically means like how many times did somebody scroll past your content? It doesn't necessarily mean that they stop and they engage with it or that they really took the time to look at it, just that it was on someone's computer screen or phone for even a second. Whereas engagement is going to be who's interacting with your content. Are they liking it? Are they sharing it? Did they send it to a friend in their comments, or did they comment on your post? What are they doing, or what do you want them to get out of that post? It's a really valuable insight that a lot of businesses are striving to utilize and understand. So
Yeah,
that's key performance indicators.
a lot of times the
Oh, go
way
ahead, Katie.
I explain impressions to people is act like you're on a freeway and you're passing by a billboard. That's an impression.
Yeah.
Up at the billboard, but you did pass by it. And that's why impressions really aren't as valuable as like reach and engagements. I would say, and Taylor, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think engagement is the most important and valuable KPI aside from, like the click-through rates and conversion rates and things like that. You really want to see, especially with organic content, you want to see that engagement happening.
No, I completely agree. You want to see that people are taking something away from your content and that they're just not scrolling past it, and just forgetting about it. So seeing that engagement tells you that you made an impact in some way.
And what is an engagement? Like, what would we consider an engagement here?
I would consider an engagement like a comment, or if you check your insights and you see that somebody saved it, or if you see that somebody sent it they DM'd it, direct messages to somebody. To me, that's an engagement. Or maybe they clicked on your bio or on the link that you included. That's an engagement.
Yeah, it's always good for people to know because sometimes it gets a little confusing.
Yeah, I completely understand that. Then we have A/B testing, and that is really used to help you strategize and determine. Did I go over that already? I feel like I said this.
Oh,
I didn't. I'm sorry. It's going to help you strategize and determine what content is performing best. For example, one day you might want to see if picture content or video content is working best for you. So what you can do is post pictures for 1 week straight, and then for the next week you can post videos for that week. And then at the end of those 2 weeks, you're going to go and look at your insights or your KPIs and see what content is really performing the best. And that's going to help you strategize moving forward. So if the pictures perform best, okay, my audience likes photos. So I'm going to put all my energy into making really great photo content. Or if it's the video, you're like, I'm going to put my energy into that. It's a really great tool for doing that. Then you have business to business. Katie mentioned it earlier, but that's really when a company is selling its service or product to another company. And a really good example is like Microsoft. Every company has a Microsoft suite. So they're constantly selling, to other companies and businesses so they can use it. Then you have business to consumers, and that's really a company selling to an individual consumer. And that's your everyday, like retail, clothing store, or like going to the nail salon, or going to a masseuse. Like it's those little businesses, or like mom and pop stores, stuff like that is going to be your B2C.
And click-through rate. I guess the best way to describe click-through rate and conversion rate is, let's pretend we have a Facebook post up, and the call to action on the Facebook post is to go to our website to learn about one of these local businesses for Shop Local. If they click from that Facebook post to go and visit the article about the Shop Local campaign and that local business, then that is a click-through. And the click-through rate is what percentage of that audience saw that post and then clicked through to the next step. Whereas conversion rate would be, hey, we're going to sell some merchandise. We put up a Facebook post that takes you to the website where they can then buy the merchandise. That transaction, that final transaction, that is your ultimate goal, is the conversion rate. So not just did they click through to the website, but did they then go and sign up for the webinar, buy the shirt, get a gift card, sign up for a service? That's the conversion. Evergreen content. Evergreen content speaks to content that is just as relevant today as it was 5 years ago, and it will be just as relevant 5 years from now. So the best way to explain this is a type of evergreen content would be like an article on 10 easy recipes that you can make for dinner tonight. That content was relevant 5 years ago, and it's going to be relevant 5 years from now. Whereas trend-based or seasonal content is going to be more timely. That's a lot of like entertainment news, fashion trends, things like that. Anything that has to do with that kind of stuff that, yes, it's a hot topic right now, but it may not be relevant even a week from now. So it's always good to mix up, and we're going to go into content in a minute. It's always good to have both types of content because they serve very different purposes for whether that's your website, your social, your brand. User-generated content is super powerful because it's really a lot like word of mouth. It's when somebody that is not part of your company goes and creates, let's pretend it's an Instagram post, and they are eating at a local restaurant in downtown Temecula and Blackbird Tavern. I'm going to go and I'm having dinner with my husband at Blackbird Tavern. I'm taking this picture because my food looks super cute, and I do it every place I go to, and I'm pretty sure most of you guys do too. I take that picture, I put it on Instagram, dinner with the husband at Blackbird Tavern. This is what I'm having. I tag them in that post. They will get a notification. I'm the user. I'm generating that content to tell other people that, hey, this place has delicious food. I think you guys should come. It's a great way to take content that you are not really creating yourself, but you can leverage to help tell your brand story. And when it's coming from other people, that builds incredible trust capital.
Mhm. I agree, and also adds a little bit more credibility.
Yes, very important.
Okay, best practices. So there's a lot of things that you should be doing or can be doing to utilize social media successfully, but we wanted to narrow it down just a little bit to like the most important parts. First off is define your why and always keep it in mind. Defining your why really helps you strategize relevant content that also resonates to your consumers or customers. It really gives your content and your business a purpose and a message that you're always going back to. A really good example is this is like Nike. They have a strong message, they have a strong purpose. Everything they do really speaks to that on their socials, from their branding in the stores, all of it. It's just do it, just do it. And then you have know your audience. You really want to know your demographic and who you're speaking to and what they want to see from you. So that's really important. And I think a really great example of a brand that does that is Apple. They know what their consumers like to see. They know that we're tuned into something that we want, something that's innovative, that's sleek, that's minimalistic, that's just edgy and futuristic. And they know we're going to keep coming back for it. So they constantly put out products and messaging that reminds us why we like it and why we want the best next thing. And then we have humanize your brand. I mean, we can't speak on this enough, but as we mentioned earlier, like social media really is all about making the connections and building your community. No one wants to feel like they're talking to a computer behind a screen. I want to feel like I look at the content and I felt something, it evoked some kind of feeling. And that's what a lot of brands struggle with. And the ones that do it well see a lot of success. The Humans of New York, I don't know if many of you are familiar with that, but if you're not, you should definitely check out their page on Instagram. They do a great job at humanizing their brand. They're telling real stories with real people, and it really keeps their audience engaged, and it's constantly growing their followers. And then we have engage with your audience. You have to join these conversations. You have to start the conversations. If someone's leaving a comment under your post, you have to respond. That's really going to build, again, your credibility. It's going to show you that you're loyal, that you're reliable, and that you're personable. Again, like it goes back to building those connections and being a human, having that human nature aspect to your brand.
And that really is, it illustrates the difference between advertising and social media. Social media. There's a reason why it's
Mhm.
called social. If you're just talking at people, you're not really talking with them and creating those conversations. So you do need to be personable.
Exactly. And also, you just don't want to be sold something every day. You know, I want to have a conversation. I don't want you to tell me I need to buy 5 pairs of socks right now because it's going out of business. I just want to hear about, like, oh, why are those socks the best? Why are they comfortable? Things like that to make it more relatable.
Yeah. And I want to be
Um,
asked, like, what do you want to see? And what kind of socks should we make next? Like, that's creating opportunities for conversation and being personable as a brand.
exactly. That leads me into have a call to action in all of your content. What do you want people to take away from what you're posting? And that really can be as simple as adding to your copy, oh, check out the link in bio to see our video, or leave a comment if you're feeling happy today. It could really be so simple, but if you know that if they follow your call to action, you're going to get that engagement and you're going to have more success on your content and your posts and overall your brand.
Yeah, and people do need to be told what you want them to do. You when they're scrolling through Instagram and they're looking at the cool picture, if you want them to share that, if you'd like them to leave a comment, let them know that that's what you want them to do. They can't read your mind, so letting them know is going to vastly increase the chances that they're actually going to obey that call to action, especially if it's something that they super care about or they feel very loyal to that brand or something that they just feel like is so compelling that they want to share it or like it or respond to it. All right. So, grammar and spelling. Now, when we're all on our personal pages, I get it. Like sometimes mistakes happen. But when we're doing social, using social as a brand, it's always a good idea to double check that grammar and spelling. Whether you're using something like Grammarly to go ahead and give you that heads up that something needs to be fixed, or just passing it on to somebody else on your team and saying, hey, can you look this over real quick? Sometimes I know when Taylor and I and the team that, we're doing a lot of copywriting and words start to blur together and look weird. Even the word weird looks weird. And you're like, did I spell this right? I have no idea. Like now we have to go and put this out. And like, it's always good to have that safety net and have a team behind you that makes sure that there's another set of eyes on that. Just to read through it, make sure it flows and that the grammar is correct and the spelling's correct. The 3 C's are the most important, I think, of the best practices. It's content. And like we talked about, content can be many different things. It can be a video, it can be a photo, it can be text, it can be audio. And really deciding what type of content that it should be after you've defined that why, right? After you've realized, okay, this post needs to do this. This is why I want to reach this audience. This is what, we're trying to say and we're trying to convey. What type of content should it be? Does that, is it more compelling as a video? Is it more compelling as just an article or an audio piece? Is it business to business? Are we trying to reach other businesses? Are we trying to reach consumers? Those are two very different voices, right? And even the types of content might resonate different with a business and a consumer. So just knowing the difference and what works best for every target audience and what you're trying to accomplish is very important, and it's a big part of strategy. And that's why when we're creating strategy here at the Creative Bar, it's not just social media strategy, it's like brand strategy, it's content strategy, and each one gets a lot of thought, like down to the post. If your post doesn't have a why, we don't post just to post. That's like a huge no-no. So we'll talk about that in like the common mistakes, but I want to reinforce in a positive way that having that why behind your content, knowing what is the purpose, what type of content does it need to be, where is it going to live, that kind of stuff is very important. And that brings me to consistency. Once you have that established, please, please, please be consistent. One of the biggest mistakes that brands make is that they will post one time 1 month, 10 times the next month, not at all the next month, 20 times the next month. Create consistency because you're creating that expectation with your audience, letting them know that you are going to be there. They start to lean on that and expect that. And the more consistent you are, the more you're going to build that trust capital with your audience, and the algorithms of each social platform will pick that up as well. If you just go no show on Facebook, the algorithm for Facebook is going to be bumped way down and your content is going to be seen by way less people. So I'm not saying you have to post 5 times a day or even every day, but decide what that consistency is going to look like. Use a scheduler. There are tons of them that you can use. Or you can just create an editorial calendar and decide when your posts are going to go up. You can schedule those posts. And of course, there's always flexibility. If something else comes up, you can always swap it out. But make sure that you're being consistent as often as possible. And community, 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 community. The best way to see social media success is to build a community. And I'm going to give you a really quick little story. I'll try to keep this quick. One of the best brands that I've ever seen that is built based solely on community is a brand called The Hundreds. My children wear their apparel. They're like a skate apparel, like very edgy, very creative. The Hundreds was created by a man named Bobby Kim, who actually grew up in Riverside. Real quick little interesting fact there. Bobby Kim didn't set out to create an empire. He created a community because he loved skating and he didn't feel like there was a whole lot of opportunity for children or teenagers in Riverside to express themselves. And he was very much into art. And he built this whole brand quite by accident called The Hundreds because he built that community. And one story that he tells in his book, which his book is called This Is Not a T-Shirt. I highly recommend after we leave here, guys, go order that book. Like, it had me in tears. It was so beautiful and powerful. And he's so well spoken. So anyway, he was telling a story about this guy on Twitter who was super mad at him. He was just trashing the brand. And instead of Bobby lashing out at him, he took the time, which he does very well and very often, to reach out to this guy and say, hey, bud, what's going on? Are you okay? And at first the guy's spewing vitriol and is super mad and just, this and that about the brand, but he kept that conversation going. Well, what about it don't you like? Like, well, it used to be, my thing. And now it's like, everybody's wearing it. And he kept going and kept talking to this guy. And it comes out like the guy has had a terrible day. His mother's kicking him out of the house. They talked on Twitter for like 30, I think, minutes. And he ended up making this guy one of the biggest brand advocates, total stranger, hated his guts for, 30 minutes on Twitter and wanted to take his brand down and just trash it. This guy knows the power of conversation and communities so well that he took time out of his day just to talk to him. And we cannot stress this enough that when you do that, you win. You can take people who are absolutely so angry at you and not a fan at all, and you can turn them into a fan. So community is very, very important.
I mean, that's like a perfect segue into measuring success. Like, what does that look like for you? I'm a strong believer in that success looks different for every single business. So it's really up to you all to decide what you want out of it and how you're going to get it. And really, like, what does it look like for you? Is it growing your followers? Is it increasing your website traffic? Are you really focused on getting those sales? Or do you just want people to know your brand's name? All of that is going to help you make more informed decisions in how to strategize your social media management. And it's important because, well, as we mentioned, data is indisputable. So this is where the KPIs come into play as well. Really watching and seeing how that content is performing. It's going to give you an in-depth view of how your content pieces are performing, who's engaging with it, how is your community building going? It's all going to go into that, and it's really going to help drive your future strategy as well.
Absolutely. All right, common mistakes. We all make mistakes. It happens. I've made plenty of them in the 15 years that I've actually done social media. That's how I got my start in marketing, by building social media communities, which is also why I'm so passionate and outspoken about the value of community. I've made tons of mistakes, and that that we all do, especially, you know, when you're just learning a platform or you're not ever told. When I started social media, there were no guardrails, there were no best practices. It was the wild, wild west. And it very much can feel that way sometimes still. So common mistakes, one of them is not doing anything at all. We call that social media paralysis. You need to say something because it leads to the next mistake. If you don't, you're leaving your brand reputation up to the public. If you do not join in the conversation, you can't control what other people say. But if you do join in, then at least you're helping to steer it in a more positive direction. One of the worst things you can do is just not use it at all, ignore questions, ignore responses. Like I just gave you the illustration with Bobby Hundreds. He turned a foe into a fan and a friend. And I think being a part of that conversation is super important, and not doing it just, it's leaving your brand reputation up to other people and people that may not be fans of your reputation. So not having defined KPIs and measuring your performance. Yeah, you need to know, like Taylor said, what those key performance indicators look like. One of, I think a great homework piece for you guys is after this, sit down and decide what we want to focus on as a brand. What are those KPIs? Are we going to focus on how many new followers we have, how many unique website visitors we have, how many comments we're getting on our content every month, or engagements? It's really important to define those and talk over with your team and decide what those are. And then please review them regularly, because you don't know what's working and what's not working well if you're not revisiting that on a regular basis. Using social media without a strategy. Whoo, that is like getting in the car and going on a road trip with no map. I can tell you, I would probably run out of gas and just be crying in the middle of the desert. Like, it's not a good idea. Having a strategy is having a why and then knowing how you're going to get there. You need to have it mapped out. And that way, when you hit those certain points, you know that, hey, we're doing really well. We've accomplished this. This is an area where we might want to shift. Strategy is not an immobile thing. It needs to have your certain pillars, but then you always know that it could shift as a new platform arises, as your audience changes, as their needs change. Your strategy will change, and you need to make sure you're revisiting that and basing it on your KPIs so that you can make informed strategic decisions moving forward. Ignoring best practices. I mean, that speaks for itself. There's a reason why they have best practices. It's to keep you from having a social media or PR nightmare on your hands. So, always reading up on best practices is a very good idea. Not being consistent, we already talked about that. So it is very important to show up in a consistent way, even if that's one post a week. Treating social media, backing up. Not being consistent. A good idea is to set aside, if you're doing social on your own, set aside a little time each day to either go and learn about the tool that you're trying to use, responding to people, following other accounts that are in your community or are relevant to your brand, reaching out to them, meeting them where they are. Super important. So setting aside even 30 minutes a day where you're dedicated to being consistent at one of these things, you will start to see results. And then treating social media like a sales tool. It just isn't. It's not. That's why we have, advertising and television commercials. Social media is a beautiful, powerful thing, but sales are the trickle down effect. If you are building that community, turning them into loyalists and brand advocates, they will want to buy anything you sell because they're not buying an object or a product. They are buying you. They are buying your stories. If you're able to sell those stories and sell them an experience and a community, they will buy whatever you're selling. It's just a marathon, not a sprint. It takes a while to do, totally possible and totally worth it.
All right, I think that is it. We're at the end of the presentation and into the Q&A.
Great job, ladies. We do have a few questions.
All right, let's hear them.
All right. Okay, our first question is, Can you use TikTok if you can't dance?
I mean, I can't dance either, and I still use TikTok.
Yes, you can use TikTok. It's the creative ways that you can use it are just amazing. I encourage you to, take this
Yeah.
Saturday, take a little time to go and peruse TikTok and look at, you can search hashtags and themes. Like you can look up cooking videos. I mean, there are so many. They have book club videos, like funny stand-up. The Rock. The Rock has like hilarious videos on TikTok. It's so entertaining, but also really informative.
Yeah, I will say be prepared though, because you will get stuck for a few hours. It's
Yes.
happened to me on more than one occasion.
It happens to the best of us.
Wonderful. Okay, our next question. I don't know if you guys know the answer to this, but are nonprofit organizations using social media such as TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, etc.?
I'm not sure about TikTok right now because I don't know. I do know that nonprofits use social media platforms. I mean, we have clients that are nonprofit organizations. TikTok is so new that I feel like it's something that would need a little bit more exploring. I don't want to give you the wrong answer on that. But I guess it just depends on if it's an individual using it or if it's like the brand using it. So that would deserve a better answer, a longer answer. We can definitely look into that and email you with the answer. We're happy to do that. But yes, nonprofit organizations. I've done Twitter parties for nonprofit organizations that had 40 million impressions over an hour. It can be really, really beneficial for nonprofit organizations to figure out where your audience lives and to figure out how to reach them with your key messaging and get them involved and build the community.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay, thank you. Our next question is, what is Brand Collab on Facebook? Does Creative Bar utilize this tool?
Brand collaboration? Is that what they're talking about?
I believe so.
Oh, okay. Taylor, do you want to take that one?
I'm not sure. That is actually new to me, brand collaboration, that term. But from the name, it sounds as though you're pulling two businesses together and collabing on a piece of content, or you guys are both posting it. We are not using that at the moment, but would love to research it more and get back to you guys.
Yeah, and I know like in the past with some of the campaigns that we've done, we do whitelisting where it kind of forms that brand partnership. So say we have, a group of influencers that we have brought in to kind of act as brand advocates. We definitely do set up whitelisting. So it allows us to disclose that brand relationship when they're posting. They can then tag the brand. That is very, very necessary because you have to disclose those relationships if they are paid relationships. That is part of the FTC regulations. Those types of relationships do have to be disclosed. So I do know when it comes to like doing the brand partnerships, whether it's on Instagram or Facebook, whitelisting, things like that, it makes it an easier way to be transparent and disclose those relationships. So I don't know if that's what you're asking about, but I do know that it is possible to do like those brand collaborations thing. I just don't know if you're talking about like a specific tool.
Okay, I will let you know if she responds.
Okay.
And our next question is, any thoughts on Nextdoor, which I believe is a social media app?
I mean, Nextdoor is kind of one of those weird ones because it doesn't technically fall under social media. As a brand, I've seen things on Nextdoor. I don't think it has enough clout really and control to be able to build a community on there. I think a lot of times it's used for people to just go and either like say, hey, my pet is lost, or, I'm so mad that my neighbor is like having a loud party at 10 p.m. at night. I have never seen any value in it as a brand as compared to the other platforms that we've talked about. Taylor, do you have any other thoughts on that?
No, I completely agree.
Yeah, I would just be super careful with those kinds of
Yeah.
community, because it's kind of like saying that Craigslist is social. Like, yeah, it has like elements, but it's largely not great for brands to use platforms like that because it doesn't have as much trust capital with it and a lot of control, and no analytics at all.
So right now, that is it for our questions. Oh, you know what, actually, okay, so your question that you answered earlier, in whitelistings.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that worked out.
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
Okay.
And I know that there was an earlier question about tagging. Someone had submitted it before about tagging, why they wanted to know why you can only tag certain people. When it comes to Instagram and Facebook, which is what I believe they were talking about, if the person's account is on private, you will not be able to tag them. If you are on a brand page and that person does not follow your page, you may not be able to tag them. Sometimes Facebook is just very finicky and we'll be doing a social media post and trying to tag somebody and Facebook just doesn't allow us to tag them. But if I go back later and redo it and I'm starting to type in their name, it'll pop up in the options. But the biggest reason is usually that they are on private and have a private account. And so you cannot tag them in those posts.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and I think there was, excuse me, one more question about trolls. And I think I kind of hit that with the story about Bobby Hundreds or Bobby Kim. The best way to deal with trolls is to have a conversation. And there's always two sides to things, what it looks like and what it really is. It may look like they're super mad, but they're just having a bad day maybe. I mean, 9 times out of 10, if you treat a troll with kindness and actually take the time to reach out to them and be a human and ask them what's going on and try to help them resolve it, not as a brand and a corporate person, but just as a human being, you're going to end up with a very, I would say, positive, experience. So that's the best way. And I don't think we ever would recommend deleting comments. Just so you guys know. I mean, unless there's like, it violates the terms of service and it's like hate speech or something like that.
Great, thank you. We do have a question that popped up. What do you recommend for setting up a content calendar?
What tool?
Yes.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Go ahead, Taylor.
I mean, I like to I make my own editorial calendar and I use Microsoft Excel or I use Google Sheets. For me, it's just helpful because I can like hyperlink my content. I can put in the copy, but you can also use platforms such as Hootsuite, Sprouts, Sprinkler. Yeah, Buffer, Planoly. There's literally an endless list of platforms that can help you schedule your content.
Yeah, and it kind of depends on most of the ones the ones that we just mentioned, they do have some like free trials, which is always a great idea to find out what works for you and what works for your team. And then after the trial is over, they usually have like different tiers as far as like how many different brands, how many different team members, things like that. But if you just go and search Google like top social media content schedulers or things like that, there are tons of articles that kind of even compare them, side-by-side comparisons, which is pretty cool.
I believe there's one also that's called Unplanned. I have to look it up and I'll get the information to you, Brooke. But that one is free and it also allows you to kind of like see what your grid is going to look like on Instagram.
Oh.
Of course.
Yeah, is that Planoly?
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Is that what it's called?
It's Planoly.
Yeah, I think it's
called
Planoly,
but there's another one. No, there's Planoly, but there's also another one that like maybe someone that doesn't have like the budget could like use. So I'll look into it, but I'm sure that it's called like or Unplanned. But it's not Planoly.
Oh, okay, very cool. Yeah, there are a ton of them out there.
Oh, thank you guys so much. Those are great. So you said it was called Unplanned or Planly. Is that what you said?
We'll send you a list of like those resources afterwards, just in case anybody would like to do a little bit more research and figure out what's best for them. And you can share that, disseminate that information to them if you'd like.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and if anybody has, further questions or you need help with strategy and realize like this is a very heavy lift and we don't have enough time in the day, feel free to reach out to us. That's what we do at the Creative Bar. Again, we love doing it. And it's better to know your strengths and your weaknesses and what you can and cannot do, and outsource the things that you can't do, because time is money and you want to make sure that this is done right.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you for having us. This has been super fun.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I will be sending out an email follow-up with the video, your slideshow, and also your resources as well to everyone who attended today.
Very cool. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
that's
you,
amazing.
everyone.
Thank you so
ladies,
much.
Have a wonderful day.
Bye, guys. Have
You
a great
too.
day.
Bye.
Bye.